How have you navigated the past year and a half regarding your mental health?
Yeah, I think it's such a good question, an interesting question, because part of me wants to answer it like by the hair of my chin, with my nails gripped into the, like the edge. And then on the other hand, I want to say that I took it day by day. I took
Mm,
each day at a time. I think that was probably without even realizing that I was in self-protection mode. It was like I can usually handle a lot, but during the pandemic, there was so much to handle that I literally could take one day at a time. And that is
right.
something that has stuck with me for someone who kind of, gets ejected by the pinball machine at 8 a.m. in the morning and, ding, 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 ding all day long. There was
Yes.
a lot of uncomfortableness in the quiet, in the
Mm,
stopping, of busy life. And so there was a lot of understanding what I needed to be uncomfortable in and what I was
right.
sitting in that felt uncomfortable, and then actually having the guts to take the time to dig into it, and then and to tolerate, the pain that comes
Hmm.
with that sort of soul searching.
Wow. I mean, I relate to that on so many levels because I think there is, as go getter, just go, go, go. When we actually have to like pause and just really, it forces us to look inward, which can be uncomfortable sometimes.
Very. It really is. I think that, well, they talk about, people who sweep stuff under the carpet or the elephant in the room. Talking about our feelings, talking about our past, talking about our fears, it's difficult. People don't
Hmm.
want to expose. And we also my generation certainly was coming out of still the cusp of the generation of you don't show your feelings, you kind of buck up and you take it. And now we're in this beautiful place, although it's hard and it's tumultuous, we are in this beautiful place of reckoning, of opening and not being bound. And I think that that's beautiful, but also challenging and hard.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, on like, there's the scientific, evidence base of what happened this past year and a half, but I feel like, yeah, in a more spiritual, just like it's been such an enlightening, opening experience for me at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like it would be the waste of a perfectly good pandemic to not evolve out of this. What would be the real tragedy if nothing changed? That would be that would be the real tragedy of the pandemic, is if nothing changed.
Right.
So, I mean, we can rip off without even having to say it. Amazing things that have happened through these 2 years of change, of evolution, of change, of tolerance and intolerance, what we can start to try to lean into and understand, and what we won't stand for. I think there's some of those things that are happening. And with change, there's always that uncomfortable period because people are afraid. People are led
Mm,
mostly by fear. And for a lot of people that are stuck in their ways, change is so unbelievably terrifying that they hold on to it enough that they go get their gun and fight for it.
true.
So I think that's some of the things that we have to think about.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I was also going to ask you, Heather, like on a day-to-day basis, how do you take care of your mental health? Maybe like before the pandemic, during, or just in general, like how do you fill up your cup?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question because it's changed. It's changed drastically. And I used to say the phrase, "Oh, I'm going to be kind to myself," but I really never understood what those words meant until the pandemic. And really just taking a moment to allow, as a human being, to allow failure and realize that that is in fact success. That is in fact a
Mhm.
part of success. So it was a flipping of perspectives, really. And the other thing I think that's so important that I learned, and that is helping me take care of my mental wellness, is kindness, is really
Yeah.
practicing as much kindness as I possibly can. Because when I feel at my worst, if I do something nice for somebody else, it automatically lifts me up. It
Mhm.
automatically makes me feel better. So although I like to consider myself philanthropic and those sorts of things, really leaning in to a new narrative, a new perspective of truly being of service and truly being kind to oneself, realizing that every mistake we made, every embarrassing moment is all about the evolution of life and the journey that we're meant to experience in this journey of life.
Wow. Yeah, I could not agree more. I think being kind, like, we can say those affirmations all day long, but until we feel it and walk it, and it's such a different feeling.
Yes. And shut out the noise too. Like I used to always think that, especially being a public figure, that I had to, part of the job I thought was to, my platform gave people a platform. You know what I mean? And I realized through the pandemic that I am not a punching bag, and my front lawn is my front lawn. And if you're going to misbehave, you don't get to come to my house.
True.
So, you know what I mean? And I think that one of the most important things that's come out of this is that we cannot take one side of any story ever. Not through the media, not through our families, not through what we tell ourselves. We cannot look at one side and say, that's what I believe. There are two sides. We're so caught up with the, clickbait news headlines. And, we have to really just stop and say, what are we feeding into? And what is that doing for me as a human being? And how is that feeding into my stress and toxicity? So we have so much coming at us right now. We have to remain insular. We have to stay true to who we are and the people and the circle around us. I say, pay close attention to your close circle.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It really is a sanctuary of people who aren't going to yes you to death. They're the people that are going to tell you when you need to straighten up. They're the people that are going to, scrape off those knees and help you get back up and slap you on the butt and send you on your way.
Yeah.
They're the people that are going to nurture for you and challenge you and make you grow. And they're the people that are going to hold your head when you just don't feel like you can go on. So those are the people. And so I learned how to crowd out those people that were making me feel less than, and really nurture myself with the people that make me feel like I can always I can.
Wow. That is so true. And one thing while you were speaking, Heather, I had a light bulb moment since this pandemic, and this is something I'm going to maybe carry throughout the rest of my life, is neutral thinking. And it's a whole art form that gave me so much peace and comfort during this past year and a half. But now it's like, I want to continue it where I don't really react to my thoughts. I just observe it as if it's someone else's thoughts, and I don't own it. I don't attach myself. And, with having a social media platform and all these things, it's so easy to get sucked into like, just getting aggressive and getting like your gears going. But I just practice really, just observing and reacting to what I want to engage with.
Yes. What is it going to serve? Like if you're having a healthy banter where you can maybe show someone a different perspective that they're willing to see, banter for weeks on end, banter all day long. But if you're hitting a dead end, I always now am asking myself a few questions. Who is this person and why does their opinion matter to me?
Right.
And that, I think we have to ask ourselves that all the time, because I love to lean in and I love to listen, and I am a sponge and I want to grow and learn and evolve until my head blows off. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to listen to, people that are talking nonsense. I'm not going to listen to people who aren't reading, the lines and just reading the headline, like I'm not, or someone who just has one side of the story because that's what they've heard in the media. I mean, people will see a headline out there today on some of our most trusted news sources that is propaganda and hearsay, or just, taking a piece out of an article and making it a headline. And that's called clickbait. And we can catch ourselves doing it. Ever see a weird article when you're reading something in the New York Times and then some other ad pokes up? You're like, what? An alien ate a cat? And, in Ohio? What? And you're like, you click on it and you're like, and then you take, and then like, wait, you're like, I cannot believe I just fell for that. I still do it.
Yes. Yeah.
So but just know, and then laugh at yourself, or take it with read the story about the alien and the cat, take it with a grain of salt. Don't take it into the chat room and fight that there are aliens. If you really want to know about aliens, then do the research. Do the work, collect the data, and then be a voice and a point of reason. There's just too much opinion and not enough fact.
So true. And I think also when you are in the industry, you kind of know, what really is like, you just know what goes on behind the scenes, and when something's just being published. But when you're not, you're so like, oh, this thing, and you're so like easy to believe every single thing that comes out. I have one more question for you, Heather. So, earlier you mentioned you are a public figure and you do live, a very public life. I was going to say, like, what is your number one rule of thumb for dealing with, or if people, the trolls, the internet, the people, like, do you have a golden rule for your mental health where you're like, I acknowledge it, I block them? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, the new rule is I block them. The old rule was that I would tolerate this, kind of like banter or whatever, because I felt always like I'm giving someone who doesn't feel like they have a voice. Because at the end of the day, we all just want to be heard. That's what a lot of the toxicity, a lot of the fighting, like, people want to be heard. They want to be seen and they want to be heard. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to stand there while I'm speaking English and someone's barking at me like a dog. Like, that's not going to be, that's not going to be healthy banter, or the court of public opinion, hanging any public figure out to dry because you read some type of sensational headline and now you're going to, try to end their career over it, such as, we've seen happen to Dave Chappelle and people like that. So we have to know that our voices matter, our thoughts count, and what we allow ourselves to get dragged into and permeate not only affects the health and well-being of the country and the community around us, but if we want to be into selfie generation, it affects you. Hate will only take from you. It will never give to you, ever. It will only take. So when you're spreading hate, you are hurting yourself. So remember that. People have to really remember that. It permeates all that kind of stuff. So the brain is a muscle. That's what it is. So we can exercise the muscle toward positivity, love, inclusion, and tolerance, or we can exercise that muscle toward all the things I don't even want to say because I don't like my brain to think those things. But hate, tolerance, and that sort of thing. So I think that is very important to our mental health, to protect ourselves, to be insular, to be honest with ourselves. Take a moment. The voice in your head is there for a reason. Okay. Like say someone hasn't called you for really, like you had a crush on someone or whatever, and they haven't called you, right? You can see how much you think about that person, in the day. So that's one test, right? But then think about, let your mind go and see where it goes. Well, they probably stopped calling because you make up these tremendous amount of stories. When I actually heard this really amazing thing, when someone doesn't call you, she's a pastor, and she said, God has a way of cutting off disease so it doesn't infect you. Maybe that call is meant not to come your way anymore. So that's a perfect example of a perspective flip, because we make up stories in our own minds all the time, but we are in fact in control, just like you are. You allow neutral thinking. So if you're thinking about the guy who blew you off that shouldn't be taking space in your brain, allow it and then push it away. Yeah. When you're thinking about thoughts like, I'm not good enough, I should have done better, I could have done better, shut it off. Kindness, practice kindness to yourself, and know that you have tomorrow. Every day there's a tomorrow. And even when the sun doesn't shine, it's still behind those gray clouds. So we have to remember that any type of struggle or challenge that we go through is meant to be there to challenge us, to help us grow, to help us evolve. So stay out of your own head. Don't take it so personal and insular. Know when you need to protect yourself from toxicity. Self-protection is important. That is also self-care. So those are some of the takeaways that I've learned in the pandemic, and I'm working on every day still. Yeah,
wow. I feel like I was just in like a TED talk. I'm like, oh my gosh, Heather, you're like so much, like just nuggets of wisdom. And one thing that I really connected with, my mom taught it to me at an early age. She calls it reframing, where, right, the guy doesn't text you back, or you don't know if you got the job, something where your mind could go one of two ways, but your mind, wants to be like, oh, it's because I wore this shirt. Oh, nope. It's because oh, nope. But it's like, you have to challenge your mind in those moments and be like, wait, I'm going to reframe it. Actually, I'm not going to jump to conclusions, or I'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
Yes.
Or, but what if I did get the job? Kind of challenging those negative thoughts and like, well, what if everything does turn out okay? Like,
exactly. My friend Robert, I texted my friend Robert. I was looking at it today. I was texting him and he didn't answer me back. And I was like, oh, okay, he must be busy or whatever. And then a couple of days went by and he didn't answer me back. And so what started on a Friday, moved to a Tuesday, went all the way to today, right? I hadn't heard from him. Now I said, okay, now I'm strangely worried. He's like, I just got a text from him. Lover, I've been on a writing retreat. So now I could have, what did I do? Did I say something the last time we were together? Was it something we do that to ourselves when Robert's just on a writing retreat? You know what I mean? Right. So those are the things that the human psyche will play. Those are the tricks that we play. And by the way, if Robert was mad at me, I would figure it out at some point, or he would figure it out and we would have a discussion and I would deal with it when the time came. But worry, that's why that worry, that emotion is a wasted emotion. Because deal with it when it happens, but to worry it's going to happen. See, that's exercise. That's human exercise. That's brain training. Push out the worry, push out the worry, push out the worry. Robert's fine. Robert's fine. And if he isn't, I'm going to deal with that when it comes my way. Yeah. We have to take life as it comes. When we plan too much about our futures and our destinies, planning is important, having goals and things like that. But when they don't turn out that way, we can't be left devastated. We have to pivot. And if one thing Corona has taught us, it is how to pivot.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Like that. And that's something I've worked on is just, I used to have a fear of change, like my anxiety. And I've had a therapist all throughout this pandemic where I've learned to be flexible and to adjust and to practice just like going with the flow and not resisting change, being, it's so hard sometimes, but it's also so beautiful because it's like you're kind of just letting life go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me through Corona and the one that I work on to this day is doing nothing. I'll leave you with this. You need do nothing. The universe has our back. It's meant to be. When we force too much, we try to force too much of that, round peg in that square hole kind of thing. We're missing out on some of just what's supposed to happen, what's supposed to be, kind of let it be, and it will work itself out. So I have learned to back off a little bit. Wow. And listen more than I talk. And, that's one of the things that has always been kind of like leadership 101, but I still work at it. I practice it because I'm a quick thinker and I like to engage and I have all kinds of ideas, but sometimes not, especially as an entrepreneur, not exercising my idea and letting it just simmer has been pretty rewarding. And I have found that I'm getting exactly where I was going anyway. And I'm better off for the ride and people around me are better off for the ride, but it takes practice. Wow. It takes exercising that muscle.
Wow. Thank you. I mean, Heather, you actually this is like what I needed to hear on a deeper level, to be honest. That's so cool how it just works out like that.
I'm so glad. See, we're all meant to be exactly where we are. So I'm really happy for that. And that makes me very happy.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Heather, for your wise words and just your advice. I am so grateful for this conversation.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me and listening to me and let me do something and not nothing right here today. And mental health and wellness I'm so happy at the tips of everyone's tongue. It's on the top of people's minds. And it's really important because if we had spent, the decades on fitness, you know what I mean, that we have spent, if we have spent the decades we've spent on fitness, on mental health, we would be that much further ahead, but we're here now and we're going to keep it moving. So own your health, own your mental health, protect yourself, be loud and proud, and know when to be quiet.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much, Heather. You are amazing. And I am always a fan of your work as well.
Thank you for having me, honey. Be well.
You too. Bye, Heather.